I am on Highway 533 heading north of Massey, Ontario, and it's a gravel road for 80 kilometers. Just had an interesting run-in with some kind of raptor. I didn't even get a good look at it, but it flew out in front of the car, and there, it's right behind me. I see it going in my rear view, but and I would have smashed it with the car. I had to slam on the brakes, which is not great on gravel, obviously. And I kind of skidded, just stayed on the road. Hawk missed the car by an inch and flew off. I was evidently still going. So it's an interesting start. I like that this trip is starting wild. 80 kilometers plus up a gravel road should get me pretty remote. I am on Lac aux Sables doing the Bark Lake loop, and it's 5 o'clock. I finished my last week-long trip a few hours ago. Stopped in town, Elliot Lake on the way, and Massey, and then booted it up that gravel highway, and now I gotta boot it up some lakes. I'm trying to get into Big Trout Lake, which is a ways up, and it's already 5 o'clock despite my best efforts, despite being on the water before 7 a.m. this morning when I left my campsite. But I've got the wind helping me a little bit, so I think I can do it. The portage in between where I'm trying to get and here is only 306 meters, but I've heard that it is kind of nasty, big bouldery put in and take out, it sounds like. I was just talking to a local, or a guy who's been coming up here for 35 years at the launch there, and he gave me a bunch of tips. I'm in a hurry, but I couldn't bear to leave without getting that local knowledge. It's so valuable on a trip that you're doing for the first time. So I chatted with him for a while, Jack and Pete, two of them, and yeah, they were giving me all kinds of tips. It's mostly trout trip, but there are also pike in Bark Lake, and I'm hoping to get into a trophy because I feel like I am due for one. Haven't had one in weeks of backcountry fishing now, so usually if you put in the time, get the numbers, eventually you run into a big one, and I feel like that is bound to happen soon. My goal right now as an angler is to catch a huge lake trout. Speaking of which, why aren't I trolling right now? I'm not going to get a lake trout with this lure. I don't want to troll too deep and run into snags when I'm in a hurry, but there are also bass on this lake, and I could run into some smallies. Anyway, yeah, I really just want to catch one of those huge ancient lake trout with a frayed dorsal fin that looks like the old mast of a sail of a ship that, you know, has sailed around the world. I love those fish, and I really want to get one, so I'm gonna be fishing deep and fishing for trophies on this week-long trip. This tailwind is absolutely essential. This lake is huge. Like on a map, sometimes you can't tell just how big a lake is. This thing is massive. Without the tailwind, I would not have covered it. Well, I could have covered it, but not the rest of the route into Big Trout. I wouldn't have had enough time. Still trying to gun it, paddling hard with the tailwind, so I'm making good progress. I'm also trying to beat thunderstorms. I don't know if I mentioned that, but there are thunderstorms rolling in for the next day or two, overnight tonight. And who knows, they could arrive early. Forecasts have been known to be wrong before. Could happen again. So I want to get a good camp established. I brought the tarp, I brought my hammock, because I'm tired of being cooped up in the tent. So I'm hoping to get a good shelter. Tomorrow is supposed to be that 1 in 100 year solar eclipse. So that would be awesome if I see it. but who knows, the clouds might cover it. The solar eclipse of a lifetime could be missed. But that would be sweet. There's also the possibility that I'll see a thunderstorm during the solar eclipse, and that would be a cinematic masterpiece. Gotta look on the bright side, you know? I stuffed my face twice on the way here in Elliot Lake and in Massey, so I'm not even hungry, so I can just motor it all the way there. I gotta paddle some of the River aux Sables, which could get shallow and might require wading. The guys at the access point were saying that could be a tree in the way. Yeah, so I don't know. It's always risky, and you would think I had learned my lesson. Trying to get into a route that you've never done before, trying to put in a big first day when you only have hours left in the day. So it's a gamble, but I really want to be in big trout for those couple of days where I'm waiting out the weather. Alright, I'm leaving Lac aux Sables behind, and I'm into the river section now. This river is gorgeous, full of minnows too. And here's the tree that those guys were talking about. And I think I'll just try and rip some branches off and slide under. Well, I was trying to figure out how to get through that, and I thought, you know what? It looks like no one's made an effort to clear this. There's got to be another way. So I backtracked. This looked impassable from the river over there on the other side of that greenery. And it comes to this little beaver dam, and I'm free again, which is huge. Starting to get worried there. I don't have time to have big delays right now. There are lots of moose prints in the water, and it looks like a perfect place here for moose and wildlife in general. All the guys at the launch said was watch out for bears. Sounds like there are quite a few of them here. Dragonflies are the best insect in the world. There was a deer fly pestering me, and a dragonfly just swoops out of nowhere and just grabs him, and he's gone. It was fantastic. Pretty shallow here. My guidebook said that wading could be required. So far it hasn't, but there's just enough water to paddle, which is slowing things down because I'm paddling upstream here. So it's not fast going anymore. There's no tailwind in here. And it's meandering a lot, as rivers do. So that's kind of putting Big Trout Lake in jeopardy. There actually is a fair bit of current now. The further you get upstream, the more current there is. Had I known, I probably would have done this way on the way back. So I am waiting now. Could be a while. Still waiting, but at least I've made it to the logging road. Let's see. It's about 2/3 of the way up the river, so it's alright. No end in sight for this waiting though. Just continuous swifts, I'm definitely gonna come back this way instead of the round trip. I'll take the river. These pants needed a wash anyway. This is good. So I'm at this takeout here, which is not far past the logging road at all, which leaves me to believe that it could be the wrong one. So I'm scouting it real quick because it's supposed to be 300 meters, which is worth scouting before I take everything over. But I really hope this is it because I don't have time for it to not be it. It's a good path, but doesn't necessarily mean it's the portage that I want. Could be some other bush trail, who knows. Alright, that got me back to the river, further ahead on the river. So no matter what, it's not a complete waste. Just based on the map, it doesn't feel like it was in the right place, but gotta go with it. And I'm starting to get that feeling where you start to worry you might be screwed. Concern, I guess, is the word. Because there's another trail that goes that way. And then this is the way I came from. Well, I don't know. Again, this is the challenge of doing a route for the first time and rushing to get into a campsite on your first day, first evening in my case. Never ideal. I don't want to die. I just want to watch the solar eclipse in peace. Ow. What did I just say? Jeez. I'm walking in some brand new merino wool socks and feels like I'm walking on a cloud. Probably should have done this a long time ago. I've always just scraped by with socks, usually using old socks that I didn't care about. It's kind of an important part of the outfit back here. That's the funny thing about gear, is that you don't know how much you're missing in it until you have it. Something as simple as socks. Like, this feels so good, so comfortable. I didn't know. Never had merino wool socks on a trip before. And it takes years to build your arsenal of gear, and it becomes increasingly expensive because you learn so many things that you eventually feel you can't do without. However, they're amazing investments because they usually last a while and they facilitate so much enjoyment. And this is all free. So what I'm paying for in socks and other paraphernalia that I need out here, or want, I'm saving on airfare and hotels and taxis and trains and expensive restaurants. I don't need any of it. I love this, and it's so free. At the end of the portage, there's a gravelly campsite on the far shore. And then you paddle, I don't know, a few hundred meters. And then it looks like you can go left, but there's some little rapids there. So I guess that's some other tributary of this river. And then you need to go right here. It seems simple when you look at a map, but then when you're here, there's a lot of questioning. Just about to get into little Trout Lake, and I can camp here, but I still have a good hour of daylight, so I'm gonna risk it. Worst case, I can come back, just paddle back on Little Trout Lake. If there's this one, I I don't know if it's a liftover or a portage around the dam to get into big trout, but it should be very doable, so I'm gonna risk it. So weird. As I was coming around the corner from the Lac aux Sables river around to Little Trout Lake, I swear I heard a woman's voice. But there's no one here. Maybe I've just been single too long. Maybe that's a sign. I'm imagining women's voices in the middle of nowhere. That, or it's the fabled sirens of the Bark Lake route. I've heard of them. Beautiful lake. Pretty good size for a canoe, but a bit featureless. There's another portage over that way west that I just noticed. I paddled past it and I looked down my topo map, and there's like a little lake there. Should be awesome for a canoe. And I bet you if people made a portage trail into it, it's got specks, brook trout. But no time for that now. If I was camping here on this lake, I would definitely check that out. The guys at the launch mentioned something about a speck lake off the main route, but I think they were talking about a different one, Bill Lake, they said. Anyway, not relevant to me or this video. I'm just chatty today. I got a full belly, and I had a coffee today. And it's a beautiful day. I had a tailwind. Who wouldn't be in a good mood? You have to be a monster. My map said portage. Looked like a really short one because it wasn't even marked for distance. On the right side, coming upstream, but the portage marker was on the left side, and it's not nothing. It's short, but still more than I was expecting. And I'm running out of daylight. Ow. There's a cache boat at the end of this, and it just occurred to me that maybe this trail is for boats to get through. There's just the one though. Seems like a lot of work for one boat. And maybe I could have just hopped around the dam, but there's no time for indecision right now. There's a usable trail, serviceable, and it's gotta go. So, the one campsite marked on Big Trout Lake is it's not a campsite. It's a cliff. Based on where I lined it up. Oh, maybe. Yes. Oh, yes. Somewhere half decently flat to put down a tent. So it's dark basically, and I'm on this huge lake. I don't know where anything is, and I came over to the island because people like to camp on islands, so I figured it's a good spot as any to try. And if this hadn't worked out, I'd be paddling around this huge lake and not in a good situation. Feel much better. There's somewhere to put down the tent. It's not great, but the alternative is rock, just not good. Shrubs, trees. Okay, thank God. I need to set up real quick. This is me. Just finished. and I'm kind of in the trees, but it is flat enough, and it's got blueberry shrubs underneath, none of which seem to bear fruit right now. Although there was a boy at the launch, the access point, who said there were blueberries, but maybe they were very local to that spot. Anyway, the shrubs should actually be kind of nice and cushiony, so that's not bad. Got my stuff on this tree, filtering water. I'm really super thirsty right now. I also have some water purifying with a tablet in my water bottle for quicker use. I brought red wine to celebrate a hard day, as I knew this would be one, since I ended a trip, bolted over to here, responded to a ton of messages and all that, and then slogged it into here real quick, and I am just too dehydrated and thirsty and tired to even want to. I think I'll have one obligatory swig, but it is night. I just want to go to bed. Hopefully it's not storming in the morning. It actually seems clear enough right now, because there are still some things I'd like to do. There are some signs of human use here, so definitely not the first person here, but I don't see any sign of a tent pad being established anytime recently. Anyway, to bed. One more thing right now, because I'm such a chatty Cathy right now. I just find it funny that about 2.5 weeks ago, I had that awful night getting into the Queen Elizabeth II wildlands, trying to get into Scrabble Lake, and I committed myself to never pushing it to the last second to get a campsite on a new route ever again, and here I am. Although this time it wasn't completely my fault. The campsite marked on the map was a cliff, so how could I have known? Anyway, I think I'm done talking. Yeah. Woo-hoo-hoo! Water time! Purified, baby. The good stuff.